Imagine hitting a salary ceiling at your job. Like you look around and you realize the only way to significantly increase your earning potential is to go back to school, get an MBA, or, earn some highly specific, really difficult technical certification.
Right, something that fundamentally changes your market value.
Exactly. Well, in 2003, a woman named Gina Giacco Dawson hit a ceiling in her own career, and she made a very calculated decision. Her version of an MBA, the credentials she needed to basically triple her rates, was stepping in front of a camera in one of the most heavily stigmatized, heavily scrutinized sectors in the entire media landscape.
Because we usually think of career trajectories as these clean, predictable ascents, right? You put in the time, you get the promotion, society claps for you.
It's a normal ladder.
Right. But in the adult entertainment industry, the fundamental rules of supply, demand, and entrepreneurship absolutely apply, while the social rules are just entirely flipped upside down. It's a space where the sharp business acumen required to survive is almost entirely overshadowed by the moral judgment surrounding the product.
Today we are taking a deep dive into Gina's story, though you probably know her far better by her professional moniker, Ava Devine. Our mission today is to look beyond the surface of a decades-long career in mature media.
It's quite a journey to unpack.
It really is. We're pulling from a stack of biographical articles, wiki entries, and a deeply candid long-form video interview she gave recently about the actual mechanics of her life in business. We're going to explore how someone navigates intense personal struggles, builds a highly recognizable personal brand, and then successfully pivots from a studio-controlled talent to a fully independent, self-made entrepreneur in the modern creator economy.
Her story is, honestly, it's a masterclass in how to leverage perceived disadvantages, adapt to massive technological shifts, and ultimately take complete ownership of your own narrative.
And real quick, before we really get into it, if you like what I do and want to support me, you can help out with a donation on Revolut or PayPal. And on Patreon, I have a different kind of biography and exclusive content waiting for you. All the links you need are right here in the description. Thanks so much for all the support.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to really understand the confident, independent businesswoman she is today, we have to start with the deep insecurities of her youth, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah, it really is. We are looking at a classic origin story of trying to find agency in a world where you feel entirely powerless. Gina was born in Long Island, New York, back in January 1974.
And she has a mixed heritage, right?
Right, she's of Chinese and Italian descent. And growing up in the 1980s, she battled severe self-esteem issues. She's been very open about internalizing a lot of negative messaging from her environment, feeling, weird, and feeling like she simply wasn't good enough. And that internal pain manifested externally very early on for her. Like by the time she was 14, she started experimenting with substances, which eventually escalated into a severe addiction to crystal meth by age 18.
It's incredibly heavy.
It is. And against that backdrop of profound insecurity and chemical dependency, she starts working in the adult entertainment space, initially as an escort and a feature dancer at clubs.
Which, those are incredibly demanding, physically taxing environments. You are relying entirely on immediate transactional validation from strangers, all while carrying this massive weight of self-doubt.
Right. But the turning point in her life, the moment that actually changes her trajectory, it wasn't some emotional rock bottom like you'd see in a movie. It's actually a moment of cold, mathematical business clarity.
Yeah, this part is fascinating.
She had a regular client who canceled his appointment, and he didn't just, quietly cancel. He explicitly told her that he was taking his money to go see a well-known star from mature films, and he was paying triple her hourly rate to do it.
And human nature dictates that for most people, especially a young woman who's already struggling with severe self-esteem issues, that kind of direct rejection would be completely devastating. It would validate every internal voice saying she wasn't enough.
Oh, for sure. I'd be crushed.
Right. But instead of spiraling, she gets strategic.
Yeah, she analyzes the situation and realizes the other woman wasn't necessarily working 3 times harder. She just had superior marketing. She realized that having screen credits in mature media was essentially a multiplier for her brand values, the certification she needed.
She identified a glaring market inefficiency. In her specific sector of the entertainment world, visibility, name recognition, and a documented body of work equated to a massive premium on her time.
So in 2003, at the age of 29, she makes the calculated decision to enter mature films. And 29 is considerably older than the typical entry age for that field, which meant she had to make an immediate, undeniable impact to carve out market share.
Yeah. Entering late meant she couldn't rely on the newcomer novelty that studios often market. She had to build a brand that could violently cut through the noise of an already saturated market.
And how did she do that?
She achieved it through a combination of extreme volume and hyperspecificity.
Okay, let's talk about that volume for a second. We're talking about an estimated 400 to 600 film appearances, working with the absolute biggest production studios of the era, like Vivid and Digital Playground. I need to pause on that number. 400 to 600 films.
That's staggering.
What does that actually look like logistically? Like, how does a person even do that?
Think about the physical and logistical reality of that workload. That is showing up to a set, going through hours of hair and makeup, performing highly athletic routines, taking direction, and managing travel schedules multiple times a week for years on end.
Wow.
It is a grueling assembly line pace that requires an immense amount of stamina. But the industry certainly recognized the hustle. She won a major award in 2005 for a specific performance, and later won an XBIZ award in 2011.
And for context for anyone listening, an XBIZ award is essentially the industry's equivalent of a Golden Globe.
Exactly.
But the volume alone doesn't create an icon, does it?
No, not at all. It was the persona she actively curated. She didn't try to be the girl next door type. She built a brand around extremely high energy performances and a willingness to participate in highly specialized, niche, mature content.
She actively marketed herself with fearless, aggressive titles. Like she leaned entirely into the controversy, even adopting a moniker that embraced the exact things society stigmatizes most about her profession.
Because she understood a fundamental rule of branding long before it was a corporate buzzword. If you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one.
Right.
By hyper-niching down into the most unapologetic, boundary-pushing segments of mature media, she created a fiercely loyal fan base. It was almost like early search engine optimization. She catered to very specific viewer search habits.
And she shared a striking insight in her interview about longevity in her field, which I found fascinating. She said the performers who truly succeed, the ones who last for decades, are the ones who wholly embrace their choices without a single drop of shame.
Which is such a powerful mindset.
It is. If you accept that your image is permanently public, you can take control of it. If you own the narrative, no one can use it against you. But I have to push back on the psychology of that for a second.
Go for it.
Does fully embracing a highly stigmatized persona actually protect you from the world's judgment? Or is it just a survival mechanism? Like, if I call myself the worst names first, you can't hurt me with them. Is she actually empowered, or is she just wearing very heavy armor?
That's a great question, and it's likely a complex mixture of both, and that is a crucial distinction to make. In highly stigmatized professions, shame is the primary weapon society uses to maintain control over the workers.
Okay, I see what you mean.
By loudly claiming the stigma as a badge of honor, you neutralize the weapon. So yes, it is a survival mechanism, but neutralizing a weapon used against you is also inherently empowering. The catch, though, is that the armor she wore on camera required a massive amount of energy to maintain, and it masked a very dark, private reality.
Which brings us to the stark contrast between her on-screen brand and her off-screen life. While she was projecting absolute control and fearlessness to her audience, she was privately still fighting that severe crystal meth addiction that started in her teens.
Right, from age 18 all the way to 33, she was privately spiraling.
Wait, I need clarity on this. She is battling a severe meth addiction for 15 years, but she is simultaneously shooting up to 600 films, winning industry awards, and traveling the globe.
Yes.
How is it biologically or logistically possible to maintain a top-tier brand while in that state?
It really speaks to the unique and frankly often dangerous structure of the studio system during that era. The industry was highly scheduled, heavily managed by agents and directors, and provided immediate liquid cash flow.
Right, you get paid right away.
Exactly. And for a high-functioning addict, a system that dictates exactly where you need to be requires intense, short bursts of performative energy, and then hands you cash. It can unfortunately sustain an addiction for a very long time. You can mask the internal chaos with external productivity.
In her interview, she was incredibly raw about the toll it took. She talked about the exhaustion of being high, feeling deeply insecure, wanting to just lock herself in a dark room, but having to go out and perform as this larger-than-life, aggressive avatar.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
And the turning point finally comes. And what struck me is that she takes zero personal credit for her eventual sobriety.
Yeah, she attributes her recovery entirely to a spiritual connection, a higher power that entered her life and helped her realize she simply didn't have to live that way anymore.
She recognized her own inability to stop through sheer willpower.
Yes. And by surrendering to that spiritual guidance, she found the strength to finally get clean.
And as she took control of her internal health and her sobriety, we see this intriguing parallel where she starts taking aggressive, highly visible control of her physical self as well.
The physical curations.
Yes, let's talk about those, because she treats her cosmetic enhancements with the same transparency as a contractor updating a client on a building's renovation.
She's always been incredibly open about modifying her body, which, let's be honest, is a core component of her business model.
Back in 2005, she actually had to take a break from her career to get a breast reduction due to a medical complication from a previous surgery, right?
Right. But later, as she gained more autonomy and stability, she returned to significant enhancements.
Yeah, in 2014 and then again in 2017, she documented getting expander implants, eventually going up to 1900 cc. And later, she openly discussed getting gluteal injections to dramatically alter her silhouette.
And for listeners who might not be familiar with the medical mechanics, an expander implant is essentially an empty shell placed during surgery that is gradually filled with saline over weeks or months.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it slowly stretches the tissue to accommodate a volume that a standard initial implant simply cannot achieve safely. In her specific field, her physical body is quite literally her storefront. It's the packaging of her product.
She recognized that market trends were shifting too. The early 2000s aesthetic was giving way to a celebration of much curvier, exaggerated figures. She adapted her physical storefront to meet that market demand, while also fulfilling her own personal desire for a specific look.
And she didn't hide the labor behind the aesthetic. She invited the audience into the construction process.
That transparency is incredibly rare. I mean, mainstream media usually tries to present physical perfection as completely effortless. Celebrities will deny having work done to maintain the illusion of natural flawlessness.
Oh, constantly. But by showing the effort, the surgeries, the expanders, she demystifies the product. She builds an even deeper, more authentic connection with her fan base because they feel like they are actively on the journey with her.
So she has conquered her internal demons. She's actively managing her physical brand. But the industry ecosystem around her is starting to fracture.
The whole model was changing.
Exactly. And just as she took full control of her health, she decides to apply that exact same desire for total autonomy to her business model.
Around 2014 and 2015, she publicly announced her retirement from traditional studio films and escorting. The model that had built her initial career, the constant travel, the grueling schedules dictated by production companies, the physical toll of working on a studio's timeline, it had all just run its course.
She was facing massive burnout.
Understandably so.
But a true entrepreneur doesn't just walk away. They pivot. By 2016, she announces her return to the industry. But this time, the terms are entirely her own. She leverages the rise of the modern creator economy.
Because she observed the shifting tectonic plates of the media landscape, the rise of direct-consumer clip sites and personalized streaming platforms changed the economic reality for creators overnight. She realized she no longer needed traditional studios to reach her audience.
How exactly did that shift change the math for her?
Well, in the old model, a performer might take a flat day rate of, say, $1,000 from a studio. The studio shoots the film, packages it, distributes it, and owns the intellectual property forever, reaping all the long-term profits.
Right.
But in the direct-to-consumer model, she could film a clip in her own living room, retain complete ownership of the IP, and charge subscribers a recurring monthly fee directly. She moved from being a contracted laborer to owning the entire supply chain.
She founded her own production company, aptly named Simply Divine. And the difference in her quality of life and her leverage is just staggering. Now, she sets her own call times. She chooses exactly who she collaborates with. She dictates the content boundaries. And most importantly, she captures the full margin of profit.
She basically leveraged the massive audience she built through the grueling studio system to crowdfund her independence. It is a brilliant display of economic adaptability.
It really is. And
Yeah.
here is what drives me absolutely crazy about stories like this.
What's that?
Why do we rarely, if ever, hear about the sheer business acumen required to survive and thrive in this industry? She transitioned from being a marginalized, contracted studio employee battling addiction to a fully independent, sober CEO of her own media empire.
Yeah.
She had applied this exact same strategy to selling enterprise software or, like, launching a fitness app. She would be on the cover of Forbes.
It's true. The stigma clouds the economic reality. Society struggles immensely to hold two conflicting ideas at the same time. The general public has a very hard time reconciling the idea of someone who participates in highly controversial, stigmatized, mature media with the idea of a shrewd, highly strategic business mind.
Exactly.
People look at the product, make a moral judgment, and therefore refuse to acknowledge the genius of the supply chain she built.
People look at the product and refuse to acknowledge the genius of the supply chain. That perfectly encapsulates the hypocrisy of how we view certain types of labor. If you've ever felt trapped in a job where someone else controls your schedule, dictates your worth, or owns the fruits of your labor, her pivot here is essentially a masterclass in breaking out of that system.
Absolutely. We're looking at a woman who started as an insecure, struggling teenager on Long Island. Through calculated strategy, sheer force of will, and an absolute refusal to be shamed into silence, she evolved into a highly self-aware entrepreneur.
She utilized a controversial field to build initial financial independence. And when the technology shifted, she didn't cling to the old ways. She seamlessly adapted to become a powerhouse in the modern creator economy.
And the ultimate takeaway here is the undeniable power of owning your narrative. In any career, traditional or entirely outside the box, the key to longevity is adaptation.
It's embracing new technologies, recognizing the true value of your own brand, and fundamentally refusing to let anyone else weaponize your shame against you. Ava Devine looked at the rules, realized they were designed to keep her at a disadvantage, and she simply rewrote them.
Which leaves us with a rather profound question to consider regarding the entire ecosystem she operates in. We've talked so much about the stigma she had to navigate and how she ultimately weaponized that stigma for her own branding success.
It was her armor and her marketing strategy all rolled into one.
Right. But imagine if that profound social stigma surrounding mature entertainment were to completely disappear tomorrow. If it was suddenly treated like any other standard media job, like acting in a sitcom or hosting a radio show, how would that shift the power dynamics?
Oh, wow. That's a fascinating thought experiment.
Because right now, the stigma isolates the creators, but it also creates a massive, silent, often desperate audience that drives the demand and the premium pricing. If the shame vanishes from society, who holds the power then? Does it empower the independent creators even more, or does it commoditize their product and hand the power back to the consumers?
If you take away the danger of the jungle, maybe it just becomes another predictable staircase. The premium she was able to charge was directly tied to the taboo. Remove the taboo, and the entire economic model changes.
The landscape would be unrecognizable.
But navigating that landscape, wherever it leads and however the rules change, is exactly what makes stories of survival and reinvention like this so compelling.